And here we are in the final question of paper 2. It is another probability question. In a soccer match, penalties are sometimes awarded. James is the first choice penalty taker for his team. The probability James scores and the first penalty is given by P. So, okay, the probability he scores his first penalty is P. So P is some number. If subsequent penalties in a match are awarded, the probability of James scoring depends on his previous success or failure. Makes sense. If he scores the first one, he's confident. So his confidence level might increase the likelihood he scored the second one. In fact, we can say if he scores the first, the probability of him scoring the subsequent one is 3/4. But if he misses the first, the probability he scores the second is 1/2. Okay. So if James scores the previous penalty, the probability of him scoring again is 3/4. But if he misses, the probability of him scoring is actually just 1/2. Okay, 2 penalties are awarded. The probability James scores at least one of them is 17/20. Show that P is equal to 7/10. Well, this question, that phrase I use for probability, first you work out the logic, then you work out the maths. That's what we have to do here. The probability that he scores at least one of the 2 penalties is 17/20. So we have an idea of our approach straight away when we see the word at least, that phrase at least. If we get 1 minus the probability of him missing them all, that would be the probability he scores at least 1. If we know that's 17/20, maybe we can work with that. So let's try that. We know that the probability of him scoring is P, so the probability of him missing is 1 minus P. The probability of him missing twice in a row, the probability of missing the first one is 1 minus P. The probability of missing the second one, if he has missed the first one, is 1/2. So to miss the first and miss that second is 1 minus P times 1/2. The probability of scoring at least 1 is 1 minus the probability of missing both. So that's 1 minus P times 1/2. And we know that's equal to the 17/20 from up here. So now I'm going to solve that equation by isolating P. So I work my way down through it and I get my answer. Going from here, I'd have, P is 14/20, so P is 7/10. Now that was 10 marks. Now some of you be looking at that wondering, what is this guy talking about? How would you get that answer? Probability is something that, doesn't sit easily with every student. And you would find that a hard 10 marks to get. However, you are given the solution. So you might be able to work, you might be able to pick up mid-partial credit in this question or something like that, and maybe not pick up the full credit, but you would be able to continue on because you know the probability of them scoring the first penalty is 7/10. What is the probability that he scores exactly 2 penalties? Well, I was wondering what's the situation here, but he takes 3 penalties. What's the probability that he scores exactly 2? Well, we'll assume that James is the guy that takes them all. Okay, so he scores exactly 2 means he scores 2 and misses 1. But the order of the events is a little bit different here, because he could score the first, score the second, miss the third, score the first, miss the second, score the third, miss the first, score the second, score the third, and in all those cases he scores 2 and misses 1, so scores exactly 2. Now sometimes in other questions these numbers would all end up being the same, but not so here. If we look at the first one, the probability he scores the first, we now know is 7/10. But if he scores the first, the probability of him scoring the second is 3/4, because we're given that in the first bit of information. If he scores the first and scores the second, the confidence is still high. The probability of him missing the third is actually 1 minus 3/4, so it's 1/4. When I multiply all that out, I get this 21/160. So 21/160. So that actually is this scenario here. So I have 21/160. Okay. The probability that he scores the first one is still 7/10. But if he scores the first, the probability he misses the second is only 1/4. But if he misses the second, the probability of scoring the third is a half. We know that from this part of the question here. So the probability of him scoring the first, missing the second, scoring the third, turns out to be 7 over 80. And that 7 over 80 is the middle situation there. The probability then that he misses the first, scores the second, and scores the third, but the probability of him missing the first is 3 over 10. That's 1 minus 7 over 10. If he misses the first, the probability of him scoring the second is only a half. But if he scores the second one, the probability of him scoring the third is back up to 3/4. When you multiply those together, you get 9 over 80. So 9 over 80, and that is your third situation here. It can be situation 1, situation 2, or situation 3. So I'm going to add those three numbers together, and I'm going to get my final answer. And my answer is 53 over 160. And again, that was another 10-mark question. Find the probability James scores at least one of the 3 penalties. Well, this is actually easier than the other ones, because the probability of scoring at least once is 1 minus the probability of missing all 3. Probability of him missing the first is 3 over 10, but if he misses the first, the probability of missing the second is a half. The probability of missing the third is a half if he has missed the second. So that becomes, the probability of missing all 3 is 3 over 40. The probability of scoring at least once is 1 minus 3 over 40. It is 37 over 40. And that's another 10 marks. So that 10 marks is easier earned than the other ones, but it's all kind of dependent on if you have the logic of the question. Explain why the probability of James scoring multiple penalties cannot be found using Bernoulli trials. Perhaps some of you tried Bernoulli trials, but it's not appropriate because in this case, the events are not independent. Its probability of scoring the second penalty depends on what happens with the result of the first one. So that was a 5-marker. So we're actually on now to a different part. It's the same context. We're still talking about the soccer club. They need to fundraise to fix the roof on the West Stand. They decide to run a raffle with a prize of €3,000. Tickets come in blue, red, and green, so 3 colors, and each one of them has a code consisting of 1 letter and 2 digits. Repetition of digits is allowed. Okay, so that's important. Repetition of digits is allowed. How many tickets are available? Well, we can see there are 3 colors. So 3 colors, 26 letters, 10 digits, 0 to 9 inclusive, and 10 digits again because repetition is allowed. When I multiply those together, I get 7,800. Okay, 7,800 tickets. So that was 10 marks. And we'll say compared to the first 10 marks in the question, this was an easier 10 marks, but some people will have thrown in the towel with the question at this part. And what we want to always remind people is, keep going with the question. There can be marks to be got. This is the final part of the final question. And on purpose, we made it, not quite as difficult as some of the others. The club made a profit of 12,600 once all tickets had been sold. So it's a very handy draw for them, wasn't it? 12,600 profit. What price did the club sell each ticket at? Well, the total amount of money they took in is the 12,600 profit plus the 3,000 prize money. They must have the 3,000 prize money to give it away. So their total sales, total income was 15,600. We know they sold the 7,800 tickets. So if I divide the 7,800 into the 15,600, I get my final answer, and it is €2 per ticket. They sold the tickets at €2 each. Okay, guys. Well done. You've completed the second paper and completed now the entire pre. So I wish you the best of luck in the correction of it. We'd be delighted if you fill in the feedback form to let us know how you did. We'll let you, we'll send you some of our insights that we've gained from the students' feedback. What were the best questions, worst questions, most popular, least popular, the average mark, things like that. On that note, I'll let you go, and I wish you the best of luck in the real exam, and I hope this has been good use to you, and I hope to see you at the tuition centre again.